Alright, Goblins, Goblins, Goblins. We have a Goblins versus Kingdom of Men battle report for Kings of War. Did 2250 points and just a basic kill scenario. This is what the table looked like after deployment. And army list. So down at the bottom are my Goblins, and this is what I brought with me. So there are one horde in the middle there and two regiments of rabble. They make up the majority of the sneaky stabber formation, giving them vicious. I also have Grogger's Goons, legendary horde. There are two hordes of trolls, and they each have a troll bruiser with them. Those teethy monsters there are two Maw-Beast troops. I have two mincers. Out on the right flank is a Fleabag Rider regiment. For shooting, I have my Spitter horde. Down at the bottom is a war trombone, and way at the bottom is the Grogger's Great Lobber. Finally, I have 5 individuals. On the left is a Bigot and Wizard 1 who has Banechant and Windblast. In the middle is a Wizard who just has Drain Life. And on the right is Grogger plus a third Wizard who only has Banechant added. Alright, across the table, Kingdom of Men, they have 5 regiments of foot guard as the main force of their army. Backing them up are 3 regiments of knights. Leading is a general on a winged beast. And they also have a cannon on the front line. There are 4 individuals, 4 heroes here. On the left is Orloff the Barbarian, then a wizard who I think only has Fireball. Then an army standard bearer who has some sort of healing artifact. And then lastly on the right is a just basic hero who is a otter model and thus by default my favorite. And then finally in the back is a Forces of Basilia ally group, I guess, is a low-high regiment and a priest. So in regards to my army, this is a pretty fresh build for 2250. I'm still testing it out, seeing what works, what doesn't work. I think right now it's a little bit of like a jack of all trades, a little bit of everything. So I'm hoping to do a bunch of games and make some modifications to it as I see fit. For deployment, because we're doing just a basic kill scenario, I just built myself a house right in the middle there. My plan is to chaff with the Maw-Beasts and try and do some good double charges, flank charges, where I bring in the mincers and the trolls and whatnot, and just sort of battle it out. And I'm going to let the opponent come to me because I have some shooting he doesn't. Some of the changes I might have made is I might have moved the trolls a little bit further out to start, because I do move them there later when I realize he is staying in the middle of the board. And then the spitters were in a terrible place, I think, to start, just because the forest and the obstacle directly in front of them provided cover for the first 3 turns or so. I would have been better off if I had just thrown them on the right side in that forest, and they could have just shot through those hills on the middle or the left or the right of them and wouldn't have gotten cover. Kingdom of Men. I don't dislike the list. It's pretty, it has elegance in its simplicity. I probably would have replaced 3 of the regiments of foot guard and probably the hero, because he's pretty useless despite being an otter. I would have replaced those with 2 hordes of foot guard. Keep everything simple still, but I just like that a little bit better. For deployment, I think he should have just deployed those knights all the way on the flanks. I have the Fleabag Riders out there, and I think I had like 5 more drops, so I was able to drop them late. But ideally, if he stuck 2 knights on one side and 1 knight supported by the low-high on the other, he wouldn't have worried about that at all. As it stands, place them where they are, he gets tripped up on some of the terrain and slows him down. So that was no good. The other little minor thing I would have done differently is I just would have deployed around that height 0 difficult terrain, which is the little graveyard thing in the middle of the table, because that also slows him down. Other thing to note is I didn't realize I was going to try and turn this into a battle report, so I didn't really take a lot of pictures in the first 3 turns because they were pretty boring. Like I said, Goblins, I stayed there without really doing anything. I let him advance and I tried shooting at him to just try and soften him up before he gets there. So over those first 3 turns for Kingdom of Men, he sort of just advanced in that general direction, straight forward, spreading the knights out on the outside. His cannon tried shooting at my regiment of rabble, but did no damage. On my first 3 or 4 turns, I sort of moved my shooting units, which are the 5 individuals in my spitter horde, forward, so I could shoot them on the first turn. And then I moved the trolls out towards my flanks, which I said I would have liked him out there to begin with. It would have been a little bit better. Those are the targets that I shot at. Since my spitters were on the left, I was like, maybe I could take out one of his knight regiments and see what I could do. Some of my other individuals and my rock lobber were trying to focus on his flying units because they really scare me. And ultimately, that's what I did. I got rid of his cannon as well because I didn't want anything shooting at me. At one point, my rock lobber hit once for 5 damage and wavered his general on the winged beast, but otherwise, I just did some damage. It wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't really worth it. I probably should have focused more on positioning to be ready for him coming in so I could do a little bit better in the melee part of the game, but it is what it is. So this picture is after a movement of Kingdom of Men turn 4, but I'll just describe real quick what I did for my Goblin turn 4, which was first. So ignore any of the Kingdom of Men charges that are actually on the table right now. So trolls on the left flank moved out further left. I saw those knights coming in, knew they were probably going to charge my spitters. So I was trying to get ready to flank over there. Same thing on the right. I moved the Fleabag Riders up to the midline, turned them 90 degrees, did the same with my Troll Bruiser. His knights at the time that I made that move were sitting on that hill, and you could see the dice case there as well, where they were sitting. So both of my units were sort of in that blind spot, and they were ready to start steamrolling through the middle of the table. And I did do one charge. I did a double charge with the Rabble Regiment and the Troll Bruisers, the Troll Horde coming out of the forest into his rightmost foot guard. Oops, I went backwards. I did 8 damage with that charge. It wasn't horrible because the trolls were hindered. Would have been nice though if I could have done a few more damage, but it is what it is. Okay. And now we've caught up to the actual pictures. Kingdom of Men turn 4. He advanced his main army forward. He brought the general off to try and support that right flank because he sees that I have a bunch of stuff over there to flank his units. I don't think it's a bad idea. And then he brings his Alohi into my backfield. Despite my trombone being back there. He makes a bunch of charges too. So on the left, he decides to go right over that obstacle and charges the spitters with his regiment of knights. You could also see there Orloff charged into the regiment of rabble. In the middle, I had thrown some of my maul beasts out there in front as chaff. Trying to lure him in closer so that I could charge with my mincers. And he did take the bait, at least for the right one. So he was charging that Maw Beast pack, even though they're not together. We just couldn't balance them on the hill correctly. And then on the right, he double charges my Troll Horde. For his ranged part of his turn, he shoots a fireball into the Maw Beast troop on the left and wavers them. So that's bad for me, clearly, because now that's stopped up that whole area there, right? The horde behind it and the mincer aren't really going to be able to move next turn. So I think really what that tells me is I did not put that Maw Beast troop in the right spot. I should have had him up a little bit further, maybe to the left a little bit more, or to the probably to the left a little bit more as well. And had I done that, had I not just put those two units together, I would have been able to do a little bit of maneuvering and probably get my that mincer that's stuck behind Grogger's goons into the battle a little bit quicker. But everything is clogged up there. And this is what he does with his combat. So the hindered knights on the left only do 5 damage to my spitters. That's good for me. I'll take it. Orloff, he just unleashes his once a game whirlwind attack. Didn't care that he was hindered. Does, I don't know, 8-ish damage. Whatever it was enough that he routed that rabble, even with Inspiring right next to him. There was a bigot right there. So he blows him off the table. The Maw Beast pack on the right, they did what they were supposed to do as chaff. They were routed. And he only did 4 damage to the trolls on the right. That was just unfortunate poor dice rolling. I think it should have been a lot harder with or not harder, should have been more with his unit hitting on 3s, the foot guard hitting on 3s, and the knights hitting on 3s with 16 attacks, thunders 2. I think he should have ended with more than 4 damage. But hey, I'll take it. All right, so Goblin turn 5. What do I do? So on the left, I countercharge in with the spitters. I positioned that troll bruise in the right place that I was able to charge in for a flank on those knights, and that was unhindered. You could see, unfortunately, in the middle, I'm clogged up and can't do anything because of that Maw Beast pack, but Orloff, who's breaking into my backfield, I decide to turn that left mincer to face him. Maybe it would have been better if I had shifted him to the right a couple of inches, because turning him left him in charge range still. I just thought to myself, I better turn because the mincer has a big shield on the front, so defense 6, but not being charged ultimately would have been better than getting charged in the front. So again, can't forget shifting to the side. So in the middle, I was able to do a double charge with one of my mincers and that horde of rabble on his foot guard. Grogger got into the battle on the right, charging his priest. The priest, again, is a Basilia priest, so the only thing it could do is either heal or Bane chant that Alohi regiment. So if I was able to do a few damage, pretty much just shuts down that, so that was a good idea. And then I had 2 double charges on the right, going into the foot guard, and then a double flank charge into those knights, with my bruiser, who sort of nimble corkscrewed around his hero that he dumped in front of him, and a hindered charge from the flea bags. That's what I was setting up to do, so I'm pretty happy that I was able to execute on both flanks being able to get flank charges. For my ranged combat, I continue to shoot the rock lobber at the general on the winged beast, and I've missed now through turn 5, so I only hit once whenever it was, like I was on turn 2 or something, and I've missed every turn since. My war trombone decides to shoot into the Alohi. That's what he's there for. I put him there to sort of deter against flyers, or to fight any flyers that happen to fly in there. And then 2 of my wizards attempt to Bane chant some of my hordes that are doing actual combat, and the bigot, in a desperation attempt, decides to shoot Orloff. So Orloff does take damage, doesn't matter. He's like Fearless 15, so it was a waste of 3 arrows. I successfully Bane Chant the Spitters, which I don't even know what I was thinking there, because they hit on 6s, so there really wasn't much going on. War Trombone disappointed me, only doing 2 damage, and I failed the Bane Chant in the middle, which doesn't really matter that much because the Mincer was there, but, you know, everyone loves doing a lot of damage. So this is what happened from my charges. So the Knights took 7 damage. I think the majority, 6 of it, was probably from the flank charge of the Troll Bruiser. So that was 10 attacks, hitting on 3s, crushing 3. I got 6 attacks. It's about average. I think the Spitters contributed 1 damage to it. You can see they ended up bouncing off there. I decided my close-up pictures this time would be after the battle. I don't know what I was thinking. In the middle, I routed that regiment of Foot Guard. Definitely because of my Mincer. I think I might have had 10 attacks from him, Thunderous 3, hitting on 4s. So probably did 5 or 6 damage of them, and then the Horde got the rest of it. And then on the right, I routed his other Foot Guard regiment, so things are looking good for me. But the Knights, who I had a double flank charge against, I did 7 damage only. I mean, that was enough to roll a 7 on the, or 7 or 9, whatever it is, on the nerve check, but I didn't get it. And I think the main problem was just the fact that those Fleabag Riders came in hindered. So they lost their Thunderous, and then they were hitting on 5s. So again, I think it was my Troll Bruiser who did the majority of that damage. Okay, so this is actually the end of my Goblin turn 5. I just wanted to point out another mistake I made. So you can see the Troll Horde on the left. They are very confused about where they are. My intention was that the nimble Troll Bruiser was going to do that flank charge. You know, that's what I was setting him up for. And then my Troll Horde was going to protect him. And unfortunately, the turn before, you could see here in the close-up, I left that Troll Horde partially on the difficult terrain there. So I couldn't add the double, and I couldn't make it to block the Troll Bruiser, you know, his flank from being charged. I ultimately did the charge anyway because it felt like, you know, hey, I could possibly take those Knights off the table. I might as well give it a try. I didn't, so it's going to come back to haunt me in a big way. Because here is Kingdom of Men turn 5. As predicted, those Knights charge the flank of my Troll Bruiser. The other Knights, they're going in for a second serving of Spitters to see if they could do a little bit more damage to them this time around, now that they are, they are disordered, actually. So, you know, they lost their Thunderous again. Or at least, yeah, all their Thunderous. In the middle, he goes after my other Maulbeast pack, and Orloff continues on his warpath towards that Mincer. In the middle, he sends a regiment of Foot Guard into the front of the Mincer. It's not a bad idea. You know, his goal was to try and do at least a wound to disorder the Mincer, and then gets rid of that Thunderous 3. So I think that was a smart move. And then he sends a single regiment into the front of the horde of rabble. There was, you know, if he could somehow maybe gotten a double charge in here somehow, that would have been helpful. But I think the way I positioned my units made it so that he was unable to do that. I shifted the Mincer back a little bit after they successfully killed that one regiment, with the idea that, okay, if I shift him back, he's not going to be able to double charge me. Ultimately, you know, that opens up the flank of the rabble horde, which is no good. But I think also moving back might have prevented a double charge from the regiment on the left, the foot guard on the left, from getting the flank of my my mincer. There we go. All these close-up pictures here of everything. His priest, who Grogger did do 2 wounds to last turn, has nothing else to do, so charges back in. And on the right, he sends his last remaining unit over there, which is the regiment of knights, back into the trolls. And his general on a winged beast, he sends into the troll bruiser. And so I get what he was trying to do here. The troll bruiser, if he was able to attack the flank of the knights, would be doing a lot of damage, and he decided to block the bruiser instead of that regiment of fleabag riders, because they would be hindered on an attack again. But I think just in general, sending him over here was to no avail, because the knights would still take a double flank charge from either the fleabags and from the regiment of rabble. So I think he was just throwing away that general. If instead he had followed the Aloha into my backfield and turned around to try and get some rear charges, flown back there and then just turned to face the left, there was a lot of flanks and rears that he could have charged. That might have been a better move. And there he is, attacking. Oh, and you could also see the otter hero attacking the flank of the fleabags, but he's individual, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so what happens? As predicted, my troll horde was not there on the left to protect my troll bruiser, so there was like 14 wounds or something done to him. Crazy, and he is routed, even though he inspired himself. The next regiment of knights, they like to keep things the same. They only did 5 more wounds, bringing the total up to a 10. They would have needed a 11 to rout, and that did not happen. Maw Beast pack, chaff is chaff, got routed off the table. Saddens me a little bit that neither of them got to attack, but it is what it is. I put them up there to get charged, so they're gone. And both of my mincers got wavered this turn. Orloff did 3 damage. That regiment of foot guard at the top did 1 damage. So that stinks, since this is, turn 5, top of turn 5. So I only have 1 turn left. And then the whole right side, he did not a lot of damage. Just some poor rolling, some unfortunate rolling. And maybe, like I was saying before, some... it would have been nicer to have some double charges instead of what he ended up doing to try and really get one of these units off the board. The Aloha, though, quite simply just get rid of my my war machine. I think we just said roll double ones, and if it's a 4 or lower, we'll roll for damage. Otherwise, doesn't matter. I think he rolled like a 10, so they were off the table. Okay, Goblin turn 6. Final turn if we don't go to turn 7. On the left, my spitters, being really weak in ranged combat, they move out of the way, and they make room for the trolls to flank charge the knight or the knight regiment there. The bigot decides to join in because he was useless doing anything else. Grogger's goons finally get into combat on turn 6, charging that regiment, and my wizards sort of move around a little bit so they could do some sort of magical finessing. Charge back in with my rabble horde in the middle. I don't have any pipe dreams that I'm actually going to take his regiment off the board, but being a horde, I couldn't really go anywhere else. Both mincers wavered, Can't do anything. Grogger goes back into the priest. It'd be nice if I could do another couple wounds, get her off the table, get a few more points. And then, my opponent set himself up for it, but 2 double charges, each with a flank on the right there. And that does not look good for the right side of his board. I didn't actually take close-up pictures, so I just sort of zoomed in to make it look cool. All right. Ranged combat. Finally, my wizard in the middle did something. He had a drain life. He did a drain life on that regiment that the Grogger's goons were going against. I threw a couple of Bane chants out there, and then my trombone is going, attempt number 2 at those pesky Alohi in the backfield. What happens? Well, Bane chants are successful, so that's nice. Drain life for only 1 damage. I decided to heal the Mincer. If I could keep the Mincer on the table, that'll save me 80 points. And frankly, there was really no one else I could see besides the other Mincer, so it is what it is. My war trombone greatly disappointed me. So I only did 1 damage, and as everybody clearly knows, the Alohi have Iron Resolve, so they healed for 1 damage, so I did no damage this turn. But my 10 breath attacks, I rolled, and I think it was either 8 or 9 of them hit. And so with Piercing 1, on Defense 5, I knew, okay, if I'm just playing the averages after this amazing to-hit roll, I should get 4 or 5 wounds. No. After 9 hits, I get 1 wound. So, nothing. But my charges, they go well, right? No. Would you look at that? Well, they go well on the right side, and that was expected. 2 double charges, each with a flank. I got rid of his knights, and I got rid of his general on a winged beast. On the left, I did 16 wounds to those knights who already had 7 wounds on them from the previous combat. So they were up to 23 wounds on them and rolled double ones. And that really hurt me because not only did that troll horde not protect the troll bruiser's flank, we failed to rout, and now his flank is exposed to the same knights. Whoopsies. And then in the middle, I wavered that regiment of foot guard, but I think, I only did 2 damage with my Bane chanted 25 attacks hitting on 4s. It should have been 4s and 4s. I don't know, what is that? 12, 6 wounds. I only did 2. Oh well. Grogger didn't help it either this turn, but what can you do? Okay, that was my final turn. So this is Kingdom of Men, turn 6. As expected on the left, knights take the flank of the trolls, the troll horde. For the 3rd time in a row, those knights are going into my spitters who already have 10 wounds on them. Things are not looking good. He also went into, Orloff once again just went into that Mincer. He was going to get the job done, regardless. 2 regiments of foot guard double charge my horde of rabble. And this was the problem with me moving that Mincer back. So the fact that he only got 1 wound on him, it's still, well, he was wavered anyway, but, I couldn't do anything, but the fact that I left an inch or so of space open allowed him to charge in the previous turn and then turn and charge in the flank on this turn. So that double charge is no good. Then as Alohi, go into my trolls. You can see on the right though, after I killed off all that stuff, I reformed and faced back towards the Alohi with most things, just because I knew, it was my last turn. I was just trying to defend a rear charge. Accidentally forgot to regen on those trolls, but I don't really think it comes into play. He Bane chants the Alohi successfully and does a fireball on the bigot for 1 damage, but it didn't do anything. And here's some close-ups of those charges. My poor trolls, my poor spitters. Oh no, not my rabble. And there's the Alohi facing down the mossy trolls. What happens? Well, flank charge trolls, those knights were on fire. They're off the table. He did 7 more wounds to my spitters, bringing them up to a 17. So it really only would have taken a 4 to get him off the table, and double ones. So I don't know if that's karma for me getting double ones on that unit the previous turn. I mean, the fact that he's got 23 wounds and, did enough that he could have routed me, but only got double ones. I don't know. I guess I got lucky there back. But the whole thing didn't need to happen to begin with. I should have mopped up those knights on the left side, but didn't. Can't stop Orloff. He's a machine. He gets rid of that mincer down there despite the big shield. And in the middle, that flank charge helped him. He did 12 wounds. I think that brought them up to 16, so they only needed a 5 to waver them. But he rolled a 4. A 5 to rout them, so he rolled a 4 and only wavered them. So I got real lucky that, I exposed that flank charge, but I did not get knocked off the table. The Alohi only did like 5 wounds, but, they rolled really well on their nerve check. And even if I had brought some of the wounds off with the regen that I forgot to do, I think the nerve check was like a 10 or a 11, something really high, so they were definitely off the table. And that is how everything looks at the end of turn 6, and there was not a turn 7. And so since we're just doing kill, those are the points that was lost. So I lost 905 points, he lost 840, only a difference of 65. So that is a draw. And that is it. Hopefully next time I take better pictures and maybe have some better painted units. Thank you.